I'm trying to make it speak better. It's real, so yeah. Yeah, I know. So I know. I don't know last actually sit on the site. I'm the grandma.
All right, good morning. Happy February. It's finally February. It was like the longest January of all time. I felt like we were in the like 75th day of January by the time it was over. But it's February, finally moving on to a new month. We have a special guest today. I'm very excited. This is my daughter Paisley. Do you want to say hi? Hi. Right, college students getting younger and younger. I've been trying, so my partner always takes my kids to takes our kids, I should say our kids to her class every year, and I was like, I should take them too. So yeah, so I'll probably bring each one of them at some point, but Paisley gets to go, got to go first. So all right. I had another thought, but no, I think it left me. No. Everyone have a good weekend. I ate lots of cookies. I went up to Morro Bay and ate way too many cookies. Like Cayuco's Morro Bay up there at Brown Butter Cookie Company. Oh my gosh, I think I ate like, how many cookies would you say I ate? 10? 10 that you saw, right? I ate quite a bit more than that. I ate a fair share of cookies this weekend, but they got rid of my favorite cookie and I was really like, it ruined my whole day on Friday. I recovered, but my kids have had to hear that, and like I've said it like 57 times all week. I was like, they got rid of my favorite cookie. But anyway, moving on. All right. So we're gonna jump back into where we were. We have a couple more slides and then we're done with chapter 2. And then we move to chapter 3. We're getting closer and closer to the disorders. They're coming soon. So we left off here, right? We watched our videos with Rogers and Pearls and Gloria. And we have one more model to go. And then I do have like a little case study review that we're going to do together as one of our participations. So the socio-cultural model is our last one. From this perspective, we're looking at like other people, right? So we're looking at things like norms, culture, other people, so relationships. Within this perspective, we're trying to see how do we have other people influence us, right? How do we have the role of our culture or norms or things that are typical in our society? How do relationships, friendships, like culture, all of those things shape our behavior? Sometimes called the multicultural perspective. And because we're looking at other people from this lens or theory, we always treat within a bigger perspective. So rather than focusing on like one-on-one kind of things, we're looking at group therapies and self-help groups and couples counseling, things that involve more than one person. So some of the kind of big treatments in this perspective are things like group therapy or self-help groups. And they're kind of similar in a lot of ways, but there's one kind of key difference between these two. Group therapy is something that's led by a therapist, right? So there's like one or two therapists, a bunch of people struggling with the same issue. Self-help groups are typically led by someone who's not a clinician, right? So somebody who has like experience in an area. You can think of like NA or AA as very typical like self-help groups. But the idea with both of these is that you get a group of people together who are all struggling with the same issue. And then they share a therapist or clinicians or maybe somebody who just has more knowledge, and they work through the issues together. And group therapy and self-help groups can be really helpful for feeling like you're not alone with something, right? So like if you're sitting there with a group of people all struggling with the same issue, there's this sense of like, oh, I'm like, we're all like dealing with it together, right? And you can make friendships and connections that way. A lot of great support can kind of come out of that. So we see that both of these together can really help tackle something with the presence of other people. Has a really great like normalizing force to it. Other things in this perspective, family therapy, couples or marital therapy, and then like more culture sensitive therapies. Anyone in here ever been to family therapy before? Right? Well, I saw some like kind of like annoying parents, right? I never feel like family therapy is the most like fun thing to go to, especially as a kid, right? And you're all shaking your heads, right? It just tends to be kind of like the adults gang up on the kids. That kind of has the feel to it. Yeah.
Imagine that, but with like foster parents.
Yeah.
No, it's like the worst.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was my own personal therapist, but it was still, it, I don't think it's useful.
Sure.
I truly don't think it's useful.
Mhm.
But
And I see a lot of people shaking heads. Other comments or stories? Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's fun in a way, like, I don't know, like. It has to be done very delicately. So
Sure.
sometimes like parents will think that they're like not in the wrong at all,
Mhm.
which like sometimes, you know, that can be true, but it's like it's a very delicate balance, like, and it definitely like does have to like gain upon ours, and it really depends on how your therapist is. If
Yeah,
That's what he lets learn. I don't know, sometimes it does help, like,
for sure.
but it's very particular situations. It can go either way.
Yeah, I think if you set it up properly, if everything's done well, it can be really very helpful, but it can also have the potential to not be. Yeah.
My I went to a like a group program.
Sure.
To counselor with family therapy, and I was talking about like other people with disabilities.
Mhm.
So it's like about like toxic people, and that was just single family. So it was like I was like mostly
Yeah,
so, but it was definitely
yeah. ARFID, avoidant restricted food intake disorders, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's not one that a lot of people do know about, but if you meet with the family, you can kind of discuss it, yeah, plans for it. My family, my parents were huge fans of therapy. Like, I'm pretty sure that when I was a baby, I was like crying at Rorschach reflux somewhere. Like, I'm positive, right? From as long as I can remember, we went to therapy. It was so normal to me to go to counseling. And we always did family therapy. And my brother and I would dread it. We'd be like, oh, here we go. It's like the grown-ups versus the kids, right? And one time though, it really worked in our favor, or at least we thought it did. We went to therapy as a family, and my parents were really mad that we weren't cleaning our room. Right? They're like, they're not cleaning the room. They're not respecting the house. They're not respecting the space. They need to clean the room, all mad about it. And my brother and I just sitting there like, oh, here we go, right? Like we're gonna get lectured. And the therapist looked at our parents and they were like, well, this is the one space in the world that's theirs. And if they want to have it messy, you really should respect that. But we were like, wait, what? The two of us were like, yes. So we go home and our parents weren't allowed to tell us to clean our room anymore. And the annoying part of it though, was like, of course, the second we didn't have to clean it, we started cleaning our rooms, right? So I think they won in the end, but it felt like a victory to us in the moment. But family therapy, you bring the whole family, right? And the idea here is that if one person in a family has an issue, it spills over onto everybody, right? It affects the whole family, especially if you're living together. So here we treat the whole family unit, a lot of boundaries and responsibilities and communication. Couples or marital therapy. This was like my favorite and the one that scared me the most as a therapist, right? So fascinating, but it can get volatile and out of hand really, really quickly. And I always had this fear that they would like kill each other in the car on the way home. But couples therapy, you deal with people in a relationship with each other, right? And this is a very common one, but very stigmatized. A lot of people, I think, have that belief of like, well, I'd rather do anything than go to couples therapy, right? Like it's like that last ditch effort, but it can be really beneficial to people who communicate differently, who have different needs, different levels of responsibility in a relationship. And I found a really cool like little montage clip of this that I want to play for you. And it's from a movie, if you've ever seen Couples Retreat. It's a comedy. And so all the people in this little montages, it shows you a bunch of different couples, and you can see how some of them are sitting very close, some of them are kind of spread out on the couch. And that's probably one of the most interesting things about couples counseling as a therapist. If you have chairs and a couch, when they walk in, where do they choose to sit? Do they sit together? Do they sit separately? It's a lot of talking about boundaries and communication and relationship stuff. Sex comes up a lot in terms of like frequency and like interest. For a lot of issues in couples counseling, and it can be really helpful, right, for people. It can also be something that people go to as a way to break up, right? That's not the most common way people go to counseling, but it can also be that they go there to kind of navigate a divorce or the end of a relationship. So couples counseling, family counseling, and then more like culture sensitive therapies, where we're just kind of looking at helping people who maybe are in a minority group who need a little bit of extra support because maybe the culture they live in is making it challenging for them in some way. All of these are focused around more than one person, right? So how can we get groups of people or couples of people or families of people together and work on their issues and things together? So as kind of a closing thought with this before we do a little case study here, what's very common is we don't tend to look at just one model. And I think I kind of mentioned this last time. We tend to use them all together. We take little bits and pieces of each model to explain disorders, to explain what's going on with people. Very common in psychology. It's like always the correct answer. It's so simple, but it's so brilliant. It's a combination of things that lead to whatever's going on, right? So it's probably a combination of models that is causing someone's depression or anxiety or whatever struggles they might have. And so while we tend to look at them separately, in the end, we kind of look at them all together. And so what I want to have you do, I'm going to pass this out, but I created this little case study about a man named Mark. I normally get this as homework, but we're going to do it together here in class with the, from where we are timing-wise. So I'm going to give you each one, but I'd love for you to work on this together in like groups of like 2, 3, 4 people, whatever's convenient. So read through it. And then on the back, you're going to have all of the different models that we talked about. And so what I want you to do is read through the case study, and then how could you explain Mark's behavior from each one of these different models? And so you can turn in one per group if you want, but I want to make sure you each have one so it's easier for you to review. So read through it and then find a couple of people around you, and you can just do bullets for each one. But what are some things from each perspective that we covered that explain Mark's behavior? And so maybe kind of pay attention to them as you're reading.
What the heck is it? I just wanted to ask.
So again, once you're done reading it, find a couple of people around you and work on one that you turn in together.